Striking example of this broken window effect as it relates to music can be seen in this small park in Edmonton, Alberta. Several years ago, drug dealers began doing business here, and as a result, the crime rate in general began to increase. In an effort to restore a sense of order and preserve their community, local merchants paid for a sound system and began to broadcast the symphonies of Bach, Beethoven, and Mozart throughout the park. Neil DeBoard, the local chief of police, reported that the results were immediate and dramatic, with the number of crimes falling by approximately 800%. While there's no way to fully quantify all the factors that led to this decline, the gut consensus was that the beauty, intelligence, grandeur, and order projected by the classical music was so antithetical to the discord and degeneracy associated with the drug trade that many of the dealers just stayed away. A more recent example of the flip side to this principle can be seen in the rioting, theft, arson, and rape that took place at Woodstock 1999.
It's time to let yourself go right now, because there are no more rules out there.
During the Limp Bizkit set, where the majority of the sexual assaults were reported, vocalist Fred Durst introduced a new song.
How many people here ever woke up one morning and just decided it was one of those days and you're gonna break some Well, this is one of them days, yo!
And then sang,
It's going this way, I just might break your face tonight! Give me some break! Give me some break!
This chaos reached its crescendo the next night during the Red Hot Chili Peppers performance. While bass player Flea pranced about naked, and lead singer Anthony Kiedis urged women in the audience to do something so disturbing we can't even mention it here, an organization calling itself PAX, Latin for peace, distributed candles.
So here, why don't you just take one as a souvenir for coming by?
It was no small irony when these so-called peace candles were used to set fires that ultimately burned down a stage, 12 trailers, and brought 500 riot police onto the scene.
Oh, Clue, let me slip it in your fire!
When asked by reporters about the pandemonium, concert promoter John Schur replied, "I can't give you an explanation. I guess they were kids blowing off some steam and it got out of hand." It's been well said, there are none so blind as those who refuse to see. Again, as with the young criminals we looked at earlier, we're not suggesting that the music and the atmosphere shaped by it were the sole cause of all the mayhem. The heat, high prices, and poor planning have all been trotted out as contributing factors. But to say that the moral anarchy intentionally promoted by this music was not a, if not the major factor, is to not only deny common sense and the broken window effect, it's to ignore a very basic aspect of human nature. If we stop to honestly think about it, we all know we have a bent towards doing the wrong things. Little children, for example, don't have to be taught how to be bad, how to be selfish or fight or get angry when they don't get their way. Parents have to work hard at teaching kids how to be good, how to develop the self-discipline necessary to not succumb to these very natural tendencies. And even as we grow older, again, if we're honest, we struggle. It's all too easy for us to become impatient or even angry over things as inconsequential as the flow of traffic. We're tempted to goof off at work, even though we know we'd be upset if someone did the same thing to us. We're tempted to get angry and rebel against the very people who love us the most. We struggle with sexual and emotional faithfulness, even though we know it's what we desire and expect in return. On and on it goes, confirming what the Bible clearly declares. The heart of man is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Like it or not, compared to the perfections of an infinite and infallible God, our fallen, fallible, and finite natures produce actions that even at their best are as filthy rags in his sight. Our bent towards evil is really more an addiction, one for which we ultimately need his power, his grace to fight and overcome. So what happens when we immerse ourselves into an environment that encourages us to give in to these temptations?
Just for a little fun. Oh, yeah. I want to get away.
When we listen to and watch things, for example, that glorify sex, anger, and rebellion, suddenly it's not just the fires or the rapes or the looting that took place at Woodstock that begin to make sense. It's the stuff that goes on every day and all around us. The dumbing down and coarsening of language.
Okay, well, I can say
You said it 20 times already.
The increasing popularity of tattooing, body modification, and body piercing. The erosion of any and all standards of modesty. The loss of a sense of destiny, purpose, and hope. The use of alcohol and drugs.
I'm taking a hit for every one of y'all.
The celebration of rebellion, chaos, and anarchy. The assault on religion and moral absolutes. The growing fascination with death and the occult. The embrace of anger, aggression, and the celebration of violence. The increasing normalization of sexual debauchery. The list drags on. The sonic environment created by many of today's artists, both at Woodstock and more importantly, throughout our culture, is encouraging behavior that in any other time and in any other context would be almost unthinkable.
All right, we got one rule. There are no fucking rules. Have a good time.
The prophetic warning of Galatians 6 has come true with a vengeance. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he shall also reap. For the one who sows to his flesh shall from his flesh reap corruption. Billboard magazine got it exactly right when it acknowledged that popular music doesn't just reflect aspects of our society, which of course is the most common defense raised in support of the industry. It also helps define, condone, and deepen their some effect. While the vast majority of us will never be inspired by popular music to kill or commit a crime or even to take our clothes off in public, we are nevertheless affected. Whether it's in our attitude towards sex, aesthetics, authority, intelligence, civility, language, beauty, on and on. The world we create for ourselves through our choices in music, along with other entertainments, goes into our hearts and minds and works, for good or ill, their subtle magic. And this is precisely why the clear warning God presents to us in Proverbs is echoed throughout the Bible. Watch over your heart, the things you listen to, watch and think about with all diligence, for out of your heart will flow the issues of life. The primary purpose for our existence is to know, enjoy, and glorify the one who created and redeemed us. Jesus declared, "This is eternal life, to know God and the Savior whom he has sent." Continuing with the passage of Scripture we read a moment ago, the Father is looking for those who will worship him in spirit and in truth. The worship spoken of here is not some dry religious exercise, but the natural response to knowing and experiencing God. And both biblically and scientifically, there is no more profound way to be drawn into and then express this experience than through music. As perhaps the greatest musician in history, Johann Sebastian Bach said, "The end of all music should be the glory of God and the refreshment of the human spirit."
Bow down before the one you serve.
An important side note here. Because we were created for worship, make no mistake about it, each of us will worship someone or something. For those who don't know God, this innate drive to worship, to find and then serve something that gives meaning and direction to one's life, will sublimate itself in 1,000 different ways. Self, sex, money, family, honor, ease, country, pleasure, pain, power, false gods, art, knowledge, heroes, self, and more self. The capacity of the human heart to manufacture idols is practically limitless. And as we'll see, the music industry affords the perfect vehicle in which to do this. And isn't it interesting how often this idolatry can even take on the very form and feel of religious worship?
It's just music, you know? I believe that.
Music and vibrations are the basis of everything. They pervade everything. Human consciousness is reflected by them. Atoms are vibrations between positive and negative forces. Some very subtle, some complex, but it's all music.
Popular music's young fans may want to insist that it's all just music, that the songs they listen to and the videos they watch are not having any real impact on their lives. But how does that line up with the opinions of those who actually make, study, and promote the music?
The music comes to people on a subconscious level. It gets right to the core, and it has a way of transforming you.
Music works in mysterious ways, you know. I mean, once it goes in, you have really no say about what it does to you.
Music is our weapon. We also promote the idea of unification between the body and the spirit.
Music is a complete ocean. They hit one note, every hair in your body is going to stand up. And you feel like you just made love, or you just touched God's feet, or both at the same time.
I was 19 years old when I first saw the Rolling Stones. They've rocked my ass off. They've inspired me in word and deeds. From the first instantly recognizable chords, it grabs you hard, it goes to your gut, your muscles twitch, and it's deep in your soul.
Rock and roll. It's an intense force. It can move mountains, stir up love affairs, and encourage revolution.
Look at this. You're just amazed by the power of it. And I was also aware that you could just say, kill, and, you know, just somehow this surge would happen.
Funny thing about people, Gene Simmons can on the one hand talk about this power to evoke this surge, and on the other hand, spend his life defending rock music as a harmless diversion, as just a way of letting off steam and having fun. In the same way, Anthony Kiedis of the Red Hot Chili Peppers can in the same sentence talk about music's tremendous power to influence people in positive ways.
Music is made to create beauty in the world, you know. Right. There's always need for more beauty in the world, and that's what music is. It, you know, makes people happy. It gives people something creative to focus on.
And things at Woodstock were...
While maintaining, as we saw earlier, that it couldn't possibly have any negative effect on its listeners.
You know, I thought that was ludicrous. You know, I thought the media was groping for some.
Thank you, sir. Music is a magical gift.
At the 2000 Grammy Awards, Recording Academy President Michael Green echoed Kiedis when he gushed about music's power to help people while denying that it could ever provoke to harm.
Enhance the spatial intelligence in newborns, and let's not forget that the arts are a compelling solution to teen violence. They're certainly not the cause of it. Tonight,
a year later, this doublespeak was turned on its head with the controversial performance and triple Grammy nomination of raunch rapper Eminem. Suddenly, practically every liberal women's and homosexual support group in America was up in arms because of his music's potential to affect behavior, to encourage violence and hatred.
My words are like a dagger with a jagged edge. It'll stab you in the head, whether you're a fag or les. At a homo sex, a math, or a trans or best. Pants or dress, hate facts, the answer's yes. Homophobic.
But what's the big deal if it's only music? Didn't anyone listen to Mr. Green the year before?
Teen violence. They're certainly not the cause of it.
No one was. He closes his commentary with the observation, take it from a brain guy. In 25 years of working with the brain, I still cannot affect a person's state of mind the way that one simple song can. And in over 30 years of writing about the simple songs to which most of those brains listen, Rolling Stone magazine agreed. A song or an album, they said, can change your life. A great concert will change it on the spot. And when they're honest, the fans agree.
The music itself just gave you this feeling that you couldn't forget. It was like embedded inside of you. And even if you didn't know what the lyrics were, the music transported you into that realm that Kurt Cobain wanted you to be in.
Much in the way Manson courts controversy, his fans began to follow suit, or dress. Years ago, Marilyn got in trouble for bringing his Kiss lunchbox to school. A generation later, the stiletto heel was on the other foot, as kids were getting busted for emulating Mr. Manson.
You're my inspiration. Do you want to know why?
Why?
There's a lot of reasons. You've inspired me to do so many things. Like, I think about you every day, and I listen to your music every day, and you keep me going.
They have totally changed my life. They are gods. I love Korn.
And they take it quite seriously. I look into the faces of our fans, and I see that they've been touched by the Dark Carnival.
Basically, to them, there's nothing fantasy about it. It's like, it's what they're into. I mean, it really is a real existence to them.
Their music is like a background to my life. Like, everything that happens to me now, it's like my own little soundtrack. And I just want to, like, be able to hang out with them and say that I hang out with, like, the people that, like, have influenced my life.
Music is an extension of yourself. And it's like when people accept it, they're accepting you. You know, multitudes of people just vibing off your stuff. You know what I'm saying? Just heads bobbing.
To me, it's like a drug. It's like euphoria. As soon as you turn on that beat, I'm in a different world. You know what I'm saying?
Just like I do.
Well, a renowned musicologist certainly knew exactly what he was saying when he observed music really is a powerful drug. It can poison you, lift your spirits, or make you sick without knowing why. Well, in a moment, we'll try to understand why. Just how it is music can exert, for good or evil, this type of influence over us. But first, it's important to also note that what music can do to the individual, it can do to their entire culture. And this is why, from philosophers to rulers, revolutionaries to network and marketing executives, Plato's observation in the Republic has been echoed time and again. When modes of music change, the fundamental laws of the state change with them.
Ear. We are able to seduce some people in with the music who then are exposed to a different political message.
As Bob Pittman, founder and one-time president of MTV, once bragged, the strongest appeal you can make is emotionally. If you can get their emotions going, make them forget their logic, you've got them. At MTV, we don't shoot for the 14-year-olds. We own them.
It's MTV. Today you are a woman.
MTV. It's all part of growing up.
The lord of this diabolical kingdom is the prince of the air, more commonly known as Satan or the devil. With a horde of wicked spirits at his command, he is called the god of this age, the world that is at war with the true God. Though cast down and defeated by Christ through the cross, he has power wherever people grant it to him through their obedience to his satanic law, a law that we'll be looking at in greater detail later in this presentation. Wherever he's granted power, his task is essentially twofold. First, to stimulate the variety of lusts resident within the human heart, thereby degrading people as well as bringing them into greater bondage and control. For by what a man is overcome, by this also is he brought into bondage. Second, to oppose Christians' efforts to bring others to Christ and thus steal away Satan's subjects. The battlefield here is the human mind and will. Using a variety of techniques, Satan's strategy is to fill us with lies, to convince us that black is white and evil good.
I have to believe that sin can make a better man.
To help justify our sins and blind us to our need for a Savior. To distort our image of God.
Just a slob like one of us.
And erase or trivialize our image of Satan, convincing us that he either doesn't exist or that he's a cartoon imp in red pajamas. Put simply, to blind the minds of the unbelieving so that they cannot see the light of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God.
Devil inside, every single one of us, the devil inside, devil inside, devil inside, every single one of us, the devil inside.
Given its power over the heart of man, music is among the most potent carriers of this type of deception. Of course, any style of music can be perverted by evil. Many of the elements this presentation examines are found in other musical forms as well. The reason for our focus on rock, and by rock we mean the broad spectrum of popular music in all its forms, is both its unparalleled popularity and the manner in which it has given place to evil. Subtly at first,
You ain't nothing, boy.
then with increasing blatancy. As rock's celebrants have been brought under its rhythmic sway, it has become one of the most potent weapons in Satan's arsenal of deception. Fortunately, Satan's historically proven tendency for overachieving has resulted in a blatancy that, when examined by an objective inquirer, can be used to expose the devil's presence and purposes. Hence, this presentation.
Lay down your sword! Insane!
And one last point before we begin to dust rock music for Satan's fingerprints. 2 Corinthians tells us that the devil can disguise himself as an angel of light. That he can, in other words, appear as something beautiful, even Christ-like.
Beautiful child of God and man. There's a Messiah inside of you. Yeah.
Don't be fooled. Satan doesn't just manifest his power through a Hitler or a Charles Manson. He can use your favorite guitarist, a pretty pop singer, maybe even you. Anyone who resists the will of God is fertile soil for his seeds of deception.
I try to
understand my cause. There's nothing here that really matters.
It's common today in our relativistic and ultra-democratic world to think that all gods, like all men, are created equal, that ultimately there's no real right or wrong, no transcendent good or evil. Artists like Mickey Hart can talk about communication with the gods like it's all pretty much the same thing. You have your God, and I have mine. It's no big deal.
You got the right key, baby, but the wrong key. Ho, yo!
I'd like to thank our higher power we call God for seeing us through some amazing ups and downs.
Well, the Bible, as we've just seen, says there's no bigger deal anywhere. There's only one God, the source of all life, truth, goodness, and beauty. Outside of him and his loving dominion, there's evil, an evil we're born with, and an evil that grows within us as we seek to live life on our own terms. Signs and symbols that have their roots in either the occult world or in the Bible's symbolic representations of evil. The pentagram or pentacle, for example, has a long history in the occult world, as well as in the culture of rock and roll. Ditto the Il Cornuto, or horned hand, a symbol used in occult circles to represent the horned god Satan. Contextually, it can be used in a benign way, say, for example, to represent the Texas Longhorns. But in the dark, rebellious, and carnal world of rock, there's little doubt as to its ultimate significance, whether people are aware of it or not. Then there's the infamous goat head, Judas goat, or Baphomet, a symbol whose only context is within the so-called left-hand path, voodoo, Satanism, the Golden Dawn, the doodlings of self-confessed satanic serial killer Richard Ramirez, and more than a few rock bands.
Kiss! That goat!
Occult fortune-telling devices like tarot cards and Ouija boards are also not uncommon, with at least 2 bands claiming to have used the Ouija to divine their names. David Bowie consulted both it and a crystal ball in developing the character of Ziggy Stardust, the androgynous messiah who scrambled so many people's definitions of truth, authenticity, and sexuality in the 1970s. Then there are the various distortions of the Christian cross, among them the Southern Cross or upside-down cross, and the Satanic Cross, which was used as the group symbol for Blue Oyster Cult.
Not talking about the light up above, I'm talking about the hellfire down below. That's right. That's a Lucifer light.
For example, when Sarah McLachlan went looking for a name for the popular tour that showcased female performers, she settled on Lilith Fair. And who was Lilith? Well, the mythological first wife of Adam, who was thrown out of the garden for her unwillingness to submit to either God or her husband.
She was Adam's first wife before Eve and wanted to be treated equally, yet he refused her that. And so she took off, said, fine, I don't need this. She's such a strong and wonderful feminist figure, yet we've never been taught that, so I feel really proud to put her back on her rightful goddess position.
The Lilith Fair was far more subversive and satanic than anything that I could have done, because here you have people playing this very innocuous folk music that's providing America with a lot of very dangerous ideas about women's sexuality.
Manson nailed it. Lilith may look cute and have a sweet voice, but her rebellion against God's authority begins and ends in hell. To excuse around the rock music industry, this dance with the devil is both literal and intentional.
And we feel that a cleansing of the idiot ideology of the pallid, incompetent Christ is in order. And so this is something that the Church of Satan is conducting on many different avenues. We're doing this through the use of what we have called aesthetic terrorism. This involves the creative use of art, music, writing, effectively what we call propaganda, the dissemination of information to influence what we call irony.
Am I the son you've been waiting for? Am I the children war? To be a messiah on earth and to sit at your left
to create the most evilest music and to gain entrance into the 7 gates of hell.
Do you believe in demonic possession?
Of course.
Are you possessed?
Of course.
Well, there's a clear, at least I assume there's a clear satanic influence in your work. Is that real, or is that a sort of tongue-in-cheek humor that you
No, that's as real as it gets.
But your art certainly, it seems to express the stereotype of Satanism.
Yeah, but I use that specifically to bash the church.
Why?
Because that's really what Satanism is to me. It's anti-Christianity.
Both the Bible and human experience make it clear that the vast majority of people who live under the power of sin and Satan are unaware of it, at least consciously. Salvation, then, is described as a process whereby God gives people grace so that they may know the truth, that they may come to their senses and escape the snare of the devil, having been taken captive by him to do his will. The scriptures are those who once proudly bore the marks of the beast.
I was really angry, and I hated everyone and everything, and I basically wanted to murder the world. I wanted everybody to just die. I wanted everybody to suffer like I was suffering. And I wanted the power to make them suffer. This will give you an idea of where I was coming from. I still am fighting a constant battle between what is good and what is evil in me. Evil is winning to my extreme joy, but the good is not easily defeated. But I know in my heart that evil will prevail in the end. Blessed be the darkness, is what I said at the time. Today I formally and finally renounce all good and pledge my allegiance to evil. Long live the dark ones. Praise be to all evil. Satanism, according to Anton LaVey, and according to Satan, in all truth, is meism. It has nothing to do with worshiping anybody else. That's the definition of Satanism in truth. The funny thing about it is I didn't know I was a puppet. I thought I was the puppet master. I mean, the hat was wearing me. The costume I thought I was wearing me. To seek your own will is to seek the will outside of God. God is life. Jesus Christ said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Your way is dead way. I mean, it's suicide, is literally what it is. It might not matter to you now. It might not matter to you to the day you breathe your last breath. But it will matter. You will regret it. You will be sorry. And I hope it's on this side of the grave, because if it's on the other side, you're going to be sorry forever. A lot of you have heard this song, I'm sure. But it's true. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Once was blind, but now I see.
Some people say this music is loud, stupid, excessive, vulgar, and appeals to the basest animal instincts. That's why we play it.
I don't know. I think music really, it's supposed to be like a feeling. It's usually about like youth culture, totally rebelling.
Probably a lot of it was rebellion. Has a lot of influence on people and doing your own thing.
It's no fun to be good. You got, you gotta let loose and you gotta do rules. I guess kind of a cliche, but rules are meant to be broken, I guess, is what they say.
Rock and roll's always kind of been rebellious. I don't know, it's supposed to
Bug your parents, I guess.
What do your parents think of ITP?
They fucking hate them, but f them.
In my opinion, rock and roll is more of a rebellious type music than it is stay in school, go get good grades, you know? I don't know, but I like it.
To say that rock celebrates rebellion is like noting the sky's blue. Spin the radio dial or plop down in front of MTV anytime, day or night, and you'll be hit right between the eyes with what one prestigious rock magazine called rock's essential core, a core of rebellion, sexuality, assertion, and even violence. All the things that have always been unacceptable to a ruling establishment. Once that vigorous, horny-handed core is extracted from rock and roll, you're left with little more than music. As Details magazine observed after covering one of the many music festivals that have come to dot the summer's landscape, so what did we learn? We learned that old rock and roll devils will strip off their clothes. We learned to shout, F the police. We learned that, should a waft of passion come into our lives, we should just scream, let's get butt naked and blank. There's no need or time to belabor the obvious. We all know or should know that the essence of rock and roll is rebellion. The only reason for rock to exist is to be a soundtrack for the movie of teenage angst and anger. A far more interesting, as well as profitable line of investigation is to try and understand something of the spiritual implications of this rebellion. Where did it come from? What are its byproducts? Where is it leading us? Is teenage angst and anger just a fact of life, like zits, and the music just a harmless way of venting aggression? Or is the truth heavier than that? Well, we could spend hours and still not do justice to this issue, but let's try to gain at least some general insights into these important questions by briefly examining a few key dynamics in our culture's love affair with rebellion. Before we get started, though, we need to make an important distinction. By rebellion, the Bible means anarchy and lawlessness, not the resistance of good against evil. God doesn't want blind submission to the earthly status quo. Jesus was the ultimate stick in the eye for injustice, indifference, and hypocrisy, and was ultimately hung on a cross for it. And we're called to follow in his footsteps. The 60s and the rock and roll revolution, for example, came about not because of what was righteous about America. Number one, rebellion is evil. Though frequently celebrated today as something cool, comical, and even heroic, make no mistake about it, God hates and punishes the sin of rebellion. The evil man seeks only rebellion, therefore a cruel messenger will be sent against him. Furthermore, God views it as a form of occultism, something we'll look at in more detail a bit later. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. Lastly, while all rebellion is serious, there's one specific type that especially tears at the fabric of divine order. Honor your father and your mother. To rebel against, to dishonor one's parents is so abominable to God that cursing or striking them, as well as other extreme forms of protracted rebellion against parental authority, was a capital offense in Old Testament Israel.
Shut up, slut, you're causing too much chaos. Just bend over and take it like a slut. Okay, Ma? Oh, now he's raping his own mother, abusing a horse, snorting coke, and we gave him the Rolling Stone cover?
In this context, one shudders to think how God views rapper Eminem's rebelliousness, as well as the millions of fans who feed off his depravities.
And there's a million of us just like me, who cuss like me, who just don't give a f like me, who dress like me, walk, talk, and act like me.
Hit her with the skateboard.
Parents and their authority have become a primary target for the grotesque defiance that courses through the world of rock and roll.
Rock and roll is supposed to bring you crazed joy and rebellion for no apparent reason. That's what it started out as, music to your parents off.
And that's what rock and roll ought to be.
Want you to eat your parents.
I don't need your authority. Down with the moral majority, 'cause I wanna be ICP!
I'm not allowed to listen to him when she's home, but, you know, I don't care if I'm not.
They hate it, but I still go. I don't give a what they say.
This is rock and roll. Parents always hate rock and roll. It's in custom. If parents like rock and roll, it must suck. Just keep this in mind. They're playing our CDs when you're not home. They're playing my tapes in your own car. And I'm influencing your children. Just don't push your luck.
Obvious in a feature Rolling Stone did on Ozzy Osbourne. The godfather of hardcore rock and roll rebellion was affectionately seen as a man reduced to trembling like a frightened chihuahua, taking Zoloft and seeing a therapist once or twice a day, plus afternoon AA meetings, just to fight off the demons of addiction. So much for rebellion as a lifestyle choice. And yet, perhaps it is his relationship with his children that is the most tragic and telling. Glaring down at his brood, Rolling Stone reported, he opens his mouth and says, "If you don't shut up, I'll..." He goes silent. His kids look up at him. Well, yes, what will you do? And they start snickering and giggling. For indeed, what dad-like words can he say to them? What is he, Ozzy Osbourne, legendary drug-addled Prince of Darkness, the very founder of parent-freaking-out heavy metal music, going to do? Ozzy blinks a few times. Then, in a small voice, he says, "Well, try to be quiet, will you?" To the alert observer.
I think I'll have you repeat it after me and get us all feeling f***ing good in here. So follow me, friends. We don't give a shit!
We have bands like Metallica embracing the darkness of nihilism and moral relativism. And making light of every kind of sin imaginable, including, ironically, shoplifting. And then getting worked up about people swapping their songs on Napster without paying them royalties.
You know what? Maybe I wouldn't have to whore myself out if the kids didn't steal my music.
Hey, Metallica, so what?
We have MTV making light of both violence and rebellion against adults in one of their network bumpers. And then broadcasting a PSA against violence. Violence, it should be noted, that featured a person being beaten with a club. Iowa, Slipknot. No doubt without fully realizing it, guitarist Mick Thompson commented on the progressive desensitization that made his band's particular brand of rebellion and nihilism a foregone conclusion. I used to watch a lot of gore movies, lots of true death videos. And at first, sure, I was disturbed by what I saw. But after a while, I became numb to it. With hard music, it's the same way. People listen to Korn, and now they want something even harder. It's like a drug. And their drug?
Basically 9 people working out every poison that ever infected them in their life and putting it on tape.
And I hope they get a positive message for them, you know, where they don't have to answer to anything or anyone.
This song is your new national anthem. This song is called Self-Esteem. Everything that you got for, don't belong, don't accept, don't give a
Drummer and group visionary Sean Crahan says the band's mission is to spread the sickness, which includes not only the raw rebellion of their lyrics and music, but live performances that feature band members hitting themselves and each other, drinking urine, smearing feces, throwing up into their masks, starting fires, and in general embracing chaos with a nihilistic vigor that would stun the Voodooans of Haiti. And the effect on their audience? Every show, Crahan told Rolling Stone, I've got some kid out there who's hitting himself just like me. His knuckles are bloody, his eyes are black. I'll look in his eyes and see that he's in some other place. It's a heavy-duty responsibility. So it's only rock and roll, huh? As incredible as all this is, there's an important footnote. Most of the band came from intact homes and led wholesome American lives.
Hi, Mom, look at me.
They live in the richest, most free nation the world has ever seen. Crahan admits, I have a beautiful wife and 3 healthy children. I'm happy, man. And then goes on to say, but when I'm on stage, it's effing on. I'll kill people. I look into the eye of the abyss every day of my life because my time here, it's nothing, man. Well, Crahan and millions of other artists and individuals feel this way because they've made a choice. They've embraced the spirit of our age, preferring chaos over cosmos, their will over God's. And now, as they stare into the pit of nothingness, this other place Crahan sees in the eyes of his fans, the anger, pain, and emptiness they experience are not only the result of a self-fulfilling prophecy, they are the emanations of the satanic reality that lies waiting, like a black hole, in the bottom of the abyss. This movement with greater honesty and precision than another phenomenon of the 60s, Anton LaVey and the Church of Satan.
This is a very selfish religion. We believe in greed, we believe in selfishness, we believe in all of the lustful thoughts that motivate man because this is man's natural feeling.
Amid satanic altars featuring naked women with 666 written across their chests, and liturgies designed to validate every perversion imaginable, LaVey's Satanic Bible gave the bottom line on not only Satanism, but on the spirit that has come to characterize much of our present age. Is not lust and carnal desire a more truthful term to describe love? Free love in the satanic concept means exactly that, freedom to indulge your sexual desires with as many others as you feel is necessary to satisfy your particular needs. Therefore, the most simplified description of the satanic belief is indulgence instead of abstinence. You have to give people like LaVey and his part-time disciple Marilyn Manson credit for having the courage of their convictions, for not trying to dress up their worldview with coy little euphemisms. Hey, you want to do your own thing? Invent your own moralities? Your own sexual ethics? Well, welcome to the Satanic Club. Be honest. Don't try to hide your true nature. You're your own God because ultimately you're your own authority, the arbiter of your own existence. Call yourself a humanist, a white witch, a liberal Christian if you must. But ultimately, as LaVey was fond of saying, you're just a Satanist in evening clothes, dressed up in order to hide your true nature. And you know what? In this instance, the Bible agrees with him. Get behind me, Satan, Jesus said to one of his followers. You are an offense to me, for you are not mindful of the things of God, but the things of men. Contrary to popular opinion, the essence of being satanic is simply being more interested in what you or other people believe about something rather than what God knows and has commanded. With that in mind, let's do some detective work by examining 4 key distinctives of openly satanic sexuality. Satanic sexuality knows no boundaries. If something is desired, it becomes a transgression of the law of Thelema, to do what thou wilt. to not act on that desire.
Sexual freedom is something we feel is very important as the necessary requisite of the Satanic Church.
As a result, virtually anything goes. Take your fill and will of love as ye will, when, where, and with whom ye will. I have taken thy name as part of myself. I live as the beasts of the field, rejoicing in the fleshly life. There are literally thousands of ways this pagan distinctive crops up in the world of rock. Consider just a few examples of do what thou wilt sexuality run amok.
So show me yours, I'll show you mine. Till time you'll love it just like Lau, and then we'll do it style so we can both watch X-Files. Do it now. You and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals, so let's do it like they do on the Discovery Channel. Getting horny now.
Along with its not so subtle endorsement of rape, especially pathetic given the growing epidemic of drug-induced sexual assaults, this platinum-selling song perfectly encapsulates what, for the most part, has become the essence of rock's sexual ethic. We're nothing but animals, so let's do it like the animals. Rapper Ice-T, the author of such sublime explorations of physical love as LGBNAF,
So why don't you tell this what you want to do?
or the new frontier for perversion presented by cybersex. Endorse vampirism. Make light of the abomination that is bestiality. Make sure that sexually provocative content appears in 75% of the programming aired on MTV.
With MTV's sex-rated video countdown.
Undress.
But think about it from just a practical perspective. What has our cultural experiment in blatant, in-your-face sensuality and all the other examples of pagan sexuality we've just looked at really gotten us? Untold millions of defiled consciences, hardened hearts, broken spirits, and millstones of shame and shattered self-esteem. A skyrocketing increase in eating disorders. Multiple millions of people infected with sexually transmitted diseases, some incurable and fatal.
There's a penalty to be paid, a very harsh one.
Tens of millions of preborn children killed through abortion. Multitudes of kids being born in families without a father. A reality, by the way, that has been clearly tied to the increased likelihood of poverty, poor self-esteem, confused sexual identity, even the premature onset of puberty in girls.
Simply viewing sexually suggestive material might actually trigger physical changes in your child's body.
A profound increase in both the frequency and perversity of sexual crimes. A pathetically high divorce rate. And, ironically, an increase in impotence and other sexually related dysfunctions. One of the world's best-kept sex secrets, one you'll never hear amid all the perversities on MTV's Loveline, is that the people who report the highest level of sexual satisfaction are those who are married and are committed to mutual faithfulness. So what is the bottom line to all of this? Well, you don't break God's laws. They break you. LaVey's biographer, Burton Wolfe, wrote these words, celebrating what he saw as the dawning of a new satanic age. Repressed people have burst their bonds. Sex has exploded. The collective libido has been released in movies and literature, on the streets and in the home. People are dancing topless and bottomless. There's a ceaseless universal quest for entertainment, enjoyment of the here and now. There's a mood of neo-paganism and hedonism, and from it there have emerged a wide variety of brilliant individuals who are interested in formalizing and perpetuating this all-pervading religion and way of life. Now,
we feel that a cleansing of the idiot ideology of the pallid, incompetent Christ is in order.
We will no longer be oppressed by the fascism of Christianity.
it should come as no surprise that among self-aware Satanists, the Jesus of the Bible, both his person and his teachings, are variously mocked, perverted, and despised. Clearly, he is the enemy, and standing against his divine authority becomes the first order of business for the spirit of Antichrist. For example, in 1916, Aleister Crowley, perhaps the century's most infamous occultist, created a ritual to banish the, quote, dying god of Christianity and inaugurate what he became among the first to term the New Aeon, or New Age. Central to this ceremony was the use of a frog that was baptized, worshipped, and then crucified with the words, "Lo, Jesus of Nazareth, how thou art taken in my snare. All my life thou hast plagued and affronted me. I blot thee out from the earth. Thine aeon is past. The age of Horus is arisen by the magic of the master, the great beast that is man, and his number is 666. After mocking the crucifixion, Crowley's great law was intoned, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." More incredible blasphemies were uttered, and then, and this is very significant, the frog was killed with the dagger of art, while intoning the words, "Into my hands I receive thy spirit." Well, the great beast would have longed to see this day. What was once the underground purview of a handful of occultists, drug addicts, and freaks has been literally forged into a dagger of art and thrust into the heart of Western culture.
Who designed your new t-shirt?
Is ultimately not an organization, but a person, and what he accomplished on a cross 2,000 years ago. And it's here, from music to album artwork, video imagery, to the lifestyles and testimonies of both the artists and their fans, where rock and roll has targeted virtually every aspect of Christ's redemptive work. His name,